Welcome, everyone, to another SERMA vlog, ripped from the headlines. Today's discussion is Saban versus Jimbo, the NIL war that is erupting as we speak. My name is Rich Lenkov. I am the founder and CEO of SERMA, which is the Sports and Entertainment Risk Management Alliance. I am also a proud alum and supporter of the NIU Huskies. Go Huskies! So very relevant to our discussion today. I want to introduce our esteemed panel. We've got Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner. Cam Buckner is also a recently announced that he's running for mayor of Chicago in the 2023 Chicago mayoral election. Cam is a Democrat member of the Illinois House of Representatives from the 26th District. He's also, very notably, for our discussion today, a former University of Illinois member of the starting football team. So, Representative, welcome to our discussion today.
Thanks, Rich.
We also have the honor of having Dan Lust from Geragos. Dan is an attorney in the New York City office of Geragos. He is also practicing in the area of sports law. Also, Dan, tell us again the name of your excellent podcast.
Conduct Detrimental. We say we are the number one sports law podcast. At least that's all we do. But we're happy to share the space and happy to talk sports law with everyone. We're just trying to spread the gospel of sports and law. Lawyers can be fun, Rich, as you know.
Absolutely. It's an excellent podcast. We encourage everyone to check that out. And finally, we've got Kevin Grodnick. Kevin is with Magna. Magna is a proud sponsor of our organization. Their CEO, Pete Hecht, is a member of our advisory board, and we're very happy to have Kevin representing the organization today. Kevin, tell us a little bit about Magna and what you do for them.
Yeah, sure. And Rich and the rest were, very humbled and excited about this partnership with SERMA, and we think it's going to be a great group, and we like what we're hearing and seeing and continuing the marketing efforts. For those who don't know, Magna is an end-to-end litigation, consulting, and support company. We service Fortune 500 insurance carriers and law firms from discovery through trial. So early in discovery, we partner up with folks that are looking for record retrieval services, court reporting, and translation. And as we get closer to trial, we provide more strategic services such as jury consulting, focus groups, mock trials, trial presentation, graphics, witness prep, anything under the sun as you could imagine in regards to trial preparation and jury consulting. So looking forward to this podcast and being part of this board.
Thanks, Kevin. So, fellas, let's jump right in because, sometimes we schedule these vlogs and we try to be ahead of the news. We try to make these vlogs on entertainment and sports issues very topical. You can't have better timing than this, right? This morning, Nick Saban, who's, of course, the coach of the Alabama men's football team, has attempted to walk back comments, criticisms he made of Texas A&M in basically alleging that they are manipulating the name, image, and licensing rules to their benefit through the transfer portal. He's alleging that these schools are unfairly advantaged by the NIL system because they are offering NIL deals or making the atmosphere easier for these players to get NIL deals, therefore recruiting better players for their organizations, for their programs, through the transfer portal. Of course, Texas A&M coach Jimbo Fisher, who is no wilting flower, who has a lot of history with Nick Saban, has come out forcefully against that idea and has criticized the comments and Nick Saban himself personally. So, for those of us who love and follow college football, this is really a juicy debate and disagreement. They've both since been reprimanded, by the way, by their organization, by the SEC. And again, Nick Saban has tried to walk that back as if, guys, we need another reason to hate Nick Saban. He's given us a new one. But I want to jump into this topic, Dan, with you first and foremost, because, it really sort of pulls the cover back for many on how NIL's name, image, and licensing issues are transforming really the face of college athletics, and in particular, the biggest moneymaker, college football.
Well, first of all, I think we buried the lead here. Jimbo is maybe the best name in all of college sport. it's appropriate that we have him at the center of this conversation. So a couple big developments this week. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't set the table as to why these comments are so obviously timely for the vlog, but timely in college sports. So 2 weeks ago, which I'm sure, people that are familiar with the space have been following, the NCAA, after being asleep at the wheel on the NIL for 10 months, said, okay, we're going to go back and we're going to punish the egregious violators in the NIL space. We're not going to name names, but we're going to go back and punish people that have acted inappropriately since July 1st of 2021. And they said, moving forward, these are the definitions for boosters. These are what we do not want. This is, we don't want people talking to high school athletes. We don't want people talking to players that have not yet entered the transfer portal. So they set the stage. And then on top of it, you have the federal government circling with a federal NIL bill. So you have the federal government trying to help, the NCAA waking up from its slumber. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of all this, you have two of the most powerful men in all of college football. Nick Saban basically accused Jimbo Fisher, the reason that Texas A&M Aggies had the number one recruiting class, because according to Nick Saban, they bought and Texas A&M paid for all of their players. Now, under NIL laws, the school is not really allowed to be that directly involved. They can, I want to say can because it's a gray area, but what people have been accusing other schools of doing is using these boosters, this group of a collective of boosters, alumni-based money to try to target athletes. But the school is not allowed to make those direct payments. That's not really allowed in any state law. So Saban is accusing Texas A&M of paying directly. Jimbo Fisher gets on the mic and says, listen, if you're going to accuse me of doing this, let's look under the hood of what Alabama's doing. Let's look under the hood of what you, Nick Saban, have done in the past. So if there wasn't enough chaos in the space, if there wasn't a sheriff in town before or a need for a sheriff, Jimbo and Saban going neck and neck and having dueling press conferences, that's going to put a really bright spotlight in the world of NIL that someone's going to need to come in and clean up, be it the NCAA or the federal government. You can't have the two most powerful guys in the sport fighting like that so publicly.
So, Representative, you bring a unique perspective to this. And, one of the players, I think the top recruit for A&M, tweeted in response to this allegation that he was being bought. He said something to the effect of, oh, really? Why is my mom still living with 5 of my siblings in a 3-bedroom house if this is all about money and I was bought, right? You bring a unique perspective, as I mentioned, because not only did you write legislation that was passed quickly by the Illinois Senate and House and signed by J.B. Pritzker, but that you co-authored, but you also, like we mentioned, played at a major program, University of Illinois. You were on the football team, and one of your teammates, I know, was involved in issues like this. Pierre Thomas, who had a really great career at U of I and went on to have a really nice career in the NFL. You had an interaction with him as well as other teammates of yours that directly, I think, if I'm understanding your history correctly, led to you sponsoring this legislation. Tell us a little bit more about that and how you see this issue playing out in the wake of the legalization of NILs.
Yeah, well, let me first start off by saying that this kind of back and forth that's going on between these two coaches is remarkable to watch. I do agree with Dan that Jimbo is one hell of a name. I think, but I also think that Tubby and Dabo has something to say about who has the best one. But also, it's great to watch two Southeastern Conference guys go after it. And let's just remind everybody that both of these guys are native West Virginians, right? And so I'm not sure how old this beef really is and where it comes from. But listen, I think this does shine a light on the conversation about NIL and how we got here. I've been very clear about the fact that even through the work that I've done in the Illinois State Legislature to bring us up to par, I really feel that the NCAA has been asleep at the wheel on this, and this should not have been a situation that state legislatures or the federal government should be dealing with. My personal experience with this, Rich, as you're alluding to, is that I was not one of those folks who thought that we should be paid. I was not one of those folks who thought that there should be compensation, because I was just happy to be out of my neighborhood, to be back, to be in Champaign and to get my school paid for. But I went to a Foot Locker or a Champs with a teammate of mine, Pierre Thomas, Super Bowl champion Pierre Thomas, who's one of my great friends. And we were having a debate about paying players. And we walked into the sporting goods store and they were selling his jersey, right? Without his name on the back of it, but his number and the Illini jersey. And we looked at it and it was like $45. And Pierre goes, I've got $20 in my pocket. I can't afford my own jersey. He said, however, somebody's going to buy this and Nike's going to get paid. The school's going to get paid. The Big Ten's going to get paid. And the store is going to get paid. That's not fair. And that changed the way I looked at all of this. And so when I went on this pursuit to make sure that Illinois was, we had some equity and some equal playing ground for our student athletes when it came to name, image, and likeness, that is how I got there. And it was definitely based on personal experience.
So it's really interesting because, the NIL developments over the last couple of years got a lot of attention. And, I think to a layperson, it might seem like that's the end of the discussion. Oh, suddenly athletes could sell off their images, their names for, money. In reality, though, it's a tiny fraction of a percentage of the money that the NCAA makes from college athletics, right? And to your point, you were not in that category of a Pierre Thomas. You had a great career, but you were not in that category. Dan and State Rep, I mean, this is really the tip of the iceberg. When will we get to the point when the NCAA actually opens up the books and shares not just the ability to go out and sell yourself, because that affects such a small percentage of athletes, and again, such a small segment of actual athletes, usually males, usually in high profile programs like football. When do they get opened up to allow some sharing so that players are able to at least have some income that this organization is deriving off their efforts? Is that going to happen at all?
Listen, I think that the one thing that can bring us there, if we look at the structure now, I'm not an economist, but I know refusing to pay people for their work and not having any competition is anti-capitalistic, right? And so the truth of the matter is the only thing that I think changes this is if the NCAA has someone else to answer to, someone else, if another association, pops up overnight, it makes them do the right thing. And I think that, while for many years, this was a far-fetched idea and a far-fetched notion, some of the things that we're seeing at the historically Black colleges and universities give me hope that may happen one day. Because, in addition to Jimbo being a part of this conversation, so was Deion Sanders in Jackson State University. And so you're talking about universities who, have a bumper crop of players who were looked over by many programs. They're underdogs just at their core. I wouldn't be surprised if folks like Jackson State and maybe Tennessee State, where Eddie George is the head coach, begin to break off away from the NCAA and start paying players directly and shake up the entire landscape.
Dan, inevitably, whenever there's new legislation, whenever there's new rules, especially with an institution as conservative and as long-standing rules as the NCAA, we can be assured as sports lawyers that there will be lawsuits, there will be litigation. What kind of issues do you think we will see going forward from a legal perspective as these NIL deals and developments continue?
So I will say, just to add to the last point that was made, Jimbo Fisher was one of the targets of Nick Saban, and obviously Nick Saban also went after, Jackson State in particular, and he said they paid a player $1 million. And Deion Sanders, talking about legal issues, basically said that Nick Saban lied. And as lawyers, we know that if you accuse someone of something and they respond and they say that you lied, right, the term defamation comes to mind. So, they're always, in a legal sense, you got to be really careful when you attack people on mic. You have to be backing that up with facts. And Saban is accusing two programs, right? Again, we'll talk about the law, but two programs of paying players directly, which, as far as I'm aware, is not allowed under any of the NIL state laws, which are about in half the states in our country. So probably the first legal domino, the NCAA is going to have to do something, right? Back in NCAA versus Alston about a year ago, 10 months ago, in the concurring opinion, Justice Kavanaugh, it's a very heavily cited concurring opinion, but he says that the NCAA is not above the law. So for about a year, the NCAA was claiming that, hey, we have an NIL packet, NIL guidelines ready to give to, all these schools to help guide them in terms of the NIL landscape once July 1st, 2021 hits. But after that concurring opinion, after they got, beat unanimously at the Supreme Court level, the NCAA threw out that guidelines, pamphlets, whatever you want to call it, and they basically just told the schools to fend for themselves. Now, we are not going to police the landscape. You guys do it. We're hands off. So that was their way of avoiding getting sued. But when you are captain of a ship that is going through really treacherous waters, right, and there's a big storm, you need someone with their hands on the wheel. And again, I kind of alluded to it, but the NCAA is now kind of awoken from their slumber, so to speak. They say they're going to police the landscape. But here's the problem. If you are in a state like Florida, which says that these, in Tennessee, there's a number of states that allow these collectives to do exactly what they're doing. Again, collectives are a group of really wealthy boosters, alumni, that are pooling money together to pay athletes to go to their school. in theory, the schools are not supposed to be involved with directing which players they want. It's not supposed to be like a menu and you call up your broker to get particular players. If that is allowed under state law and the NCAA makes a rule that punishes schools for doing something that's allowed under state law, I mean, the easy person that's going to sue are these boosters, these collectives. They're going to say, they're going to sue for a TRO. They're going to try to get an injunction, say that you're not allowed to tell us what to do because state law protects us. In the hierarchy of things that are important, federal government comes before the state government, and the state government comes before the NCAA, which is a private organization which cannot trump state law by definition. So I think that's the first lawsuit. I think the boosters are going to push back on some type of punishment that inevitably seems to be coming here.
So to that point, Representative, we'll give you the last word on this. What kind of opposition did you see when you were trying to get this legislation up and passed? What kind of responses were you getting? Inevitably, there was some pushback. Tell us about that.
Yeah, listen, our bill in Illinois was largely bipartisan, but there was some pushback. There was some pushback from folks who really were, quote unquote, concerned with amateurism, which, that's the buzzword that we hear a lot when we hear people who push back on this stuff. There were folks in the General Assembly who didn't want their precious football or basketball to be infiltrated by money. Mind you, I'll go so far to say these are folks who couldn't get in 3-point stands if it was to save their lives. But they like what they like, and they like having the thought, at least, perception that the college football and basketball that they're watching on Saturdays and Sundays and throughout the week is purer because these young people aren't getting paid. So what I will say is that there were many folks from both sides of the aisle, from all regions of the state, who were supportive of this. We even joined on as co-sponsors through our work on this, and we'll see how things move forward. But once again, we're at this point now because the NCAA had failed to do their job. They are derelict in their duty, and now, as Dan said, they have begun to wake up, and hopefully they can create some parameters to make it all make sense.
Kevin Grodnick, we will give you the last word. Actually, you're a proud Hoosier, I know. What's your feeling generally on paying athletes? I mean, right now, again, they're allowed to go out and market themselves, but should they actually get paid as part of the massive conglomerate that the NCAA is?
I'm indifferent about it. I think there needs to be like clear guidelines on what to expect. How does it work with like the video game market? If they put players' names on the jerseys versus just the numbers. So I think it's a little give and take, but to some degree, I think there should be some equity based on the sales. So I am in favor of getting some appropriate pay for the athletes, but at the same time, maybe it can go to not their direct pockets, but like to some kind of fund to grow over time. I think that would be an interesting concept.
Kevin Grodnick from Magna. Dan Lust from Geragos. His handle is @SportsLawLust. You can find him across ESPN, CBS, Fox Sports. The podcast is Conduct Detrimental, the intersection of sports and law. Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner. The account is Cam Buckner Shy, correct? People can find out more about you on Instagram, about your run for mayor of Chicago. Appreciate all of you joining us on our SERMA vlog, and stay tuned for the next one. We are probably going to be doing another one next week on the continuing fascination on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trials. There's some developments over the last couple of days on that. We encourage you to tune in. Thank you all so much. Thank you, panelists. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.